take the doors off the helicopter and go look around. Sometimes we'd see 300 elephants in half an hour, thousands of Cape buffalo. Welcome to 10 Minute Travels. With me as always is Phil Freeman.
And with me, as always, is Shane Patrick. And we're going to talk a little bit about flying helicopters in Africa.
Let's get right to it, shall we? Because they have the Okavango Delta.
What is that?
Well, we said earlier that Botswana is about the size of Texas, and it's in the Kalahari Desert. The Okavango Delta is a seasonal floodplain or swamp about the size of Connecticut. It's in the northwest corner of the country. So Botswana gets roughly, the wettest part of the country gets about 250 millimeters of rain a year.
How many inches is that?
It's about 11 probably, but that's the wettest part of the country, and that's actually in the delta. So the rest of the country gets, sometimes it doesn't rain for a couple years, and the country's really flat. It's high, 3,100 feet, 1,000 meters, but it's flat. So no rain falls there, but in the Angolan foothills, they get 7 meters of rain a year. So it rains and rains and rains and rains and
21 feet of rain.
Yeah. In the Angolan foothills, it does all this rain. And then it comes down to Botswana in the Okavango River. And then when the Okavango hits, basically when it hits the border, it spreads out into the delta. And the interesting thing about it is they definitely have a wet season and a dry season, rainy and not rainy.
Will it completely dry up?
Yeah, so what happens is during the rainy season, essentially no rain falls in Botswana. During the dry season, all the rain from the rainy season that happened in Angola comes into Botswana. So the whole of the Kalahari Desert, it's the dry season, but there's water in the delta. So animals come from everywhere. And if you include the humans, they come from the other side of the world. But if you include just the critters that live in Africa, they come from 4 or 5 countries away, because that's where there's going to be water.
It's a bit of an Eden in the Kalahari.
Sure is. Yep. Yeah, and so it's magical, it's really weird. You'll go months without seeing a cloud, but you have water, enough water for hippos and elephants and crocodiles.
You need more than 3 cups of water for a hippo, at least, I would think.
Yeah, they say something about 100 gallons a day. Who knows? A lot of those numbers seem made up to me. Just like, we don't really know, but let's just call it 100 gallons is a lot.
Well, 80.9, I think, percent of statistics are made up, right?
Is it that high? Wow.
I don't know. Is it that low?
It's hard to say.
What was a typical day in the life of a helicopter pilot in Botswana?
They varied a little bit. I spent most of my time at one camp, Safari Lodge, really fancy place, where people are spending several $1,000s per person per night to be there, those kind of places. And I would take people on trips, take the doors off, because first of all, it's hot, but it's a better picture if you don't have a door in the way. Take the doors off the helicopter and go look around. Sometimes we'd see 300 elephants in half an hour. Thousands of Cape buffalo. One time I saw 2 lions kill a lechwe from the helicopter. Lechwe is it's a semi-aquatic antelope. They have webs between their...
Semi-aquatic antelope.
Yep. Yeah, there's 2 really cool antelope species that evolved because of the delta. One is the lechwe, and that one, it goes on to land now and again, but it's not comfortable there. It prefers the water.
Dang. So what does it have for a crocodile defense? Because you have to have one of those to be able to be around.
Yeah, so the crocodile defense involves, that goes back to that whole safety in numbers thing. They'll cross a open dark water as a group. And they'll either make it or one of them will not make it, but most of them will make it. That's how they deal with it. Yeah.
Web feet, so they're superior at...
Yeah, they have web feet. They have hollow hair. They can so they float a little bit, and they're kind of tubular shaped. They look like a submarine. They look like they can swim better than you can, and they can. And they'll like mat down the papyrus reeds and sleep on a bed in the water, above the water.
They're going back. They're done being on land.
Yeah, they're better. They're better in the water.
Times you have to wake up. You probably had to be sober.
Yeah, I was doing my own thing. I was rarely at world headquarters. I was mostly, here's your helicopter. Here's what you're supposed to be doing tomorrow.
You got to know a day ahead of time.
They tried. There was definitely some surprises. But, my day started about, I suppose, 6 a.m. It's still dark. Go from my tent to get coffee and first have a look around. Make sure there's no elephants or hyenas or anything in the pathway. And then sometimes I had morning flights, because if you had keen photographers, they want to fly the first hour of the day or the last hour of the day.
Well, it's the best light, right? They say.
Sure. I was at about the 19th, 20th parallel. So 6 a.m, 6 p.m. During the summertime, it might go to like 5:30 in the morning to 7 in the evening. But basically, we had a 12-hour day.
How many hours? How much time would you be in the air?
It depended. Sometimes the camp would be full and everybody wanted to fly, or I had something else to do and I would fly many hours a day, 7, 8 hours a day. I would also go days without flying or have one flight. So there was definitely, that was part of the deal. And that was part of when the guy that got me this job or introduced me to this job, that's one of the things he was telling me is, we need to make sure that you can provide good service to world-class guests. You can fly okay, and you can deal with life in the camps, which at times meant great amounts of boredom to try to deal with. Not in small part because you were the only one not from there, So I was isolated a lot, and you can only pre-flight a helicopter so many times or wash it, whatever, and then you got to find something else to do or you'll go crazy. And so I definitely had a lot of days like that where you had to find something else to do.
New hobbies.
Yeah.
So it's, because the image is you're in the air every day, but the twiddle your thumb part of it, I guess, is it's not played up in that lifestyle.
They don't tell you about that when you're doing your training, but that's for anyone out there who's listening who wants to become a pilot. It's fantastic. You better be good at standing by because you do a lot of standing by.
So let's say you get your marching orders for the next day. You need to wake up at 7 or whatever, get the breakfast. Do you brief the customers? Then you go on the flight. If you have another one, you do another flight. You have lunch. You fly. Many times, perhaps you're flying a new route. You know what you need to do, but you're going that way. You're exploring a lot.
Yeah, when I was getting my training, my boss said a few things, and one of the things that stuck with me was if you have to do 3 flights in a row, 45-minute tours or whatever, if you fly over this way and you don't see anything, don't take the next people that way. Go over here and find something different. It was just, I had a certain amount of time that they had paid for, and I could do with that whatever I wanted. And what I always wanted to do was give them the best experience, which luckily for me meant I was going to have a good experience too.
Something new at work is always nice.
Yeah. And so I was hunting, looking for elephants or giraffes or whatever. And I would keep my eyes out for vultures because
that's where the action is.
That's where the action is.
That brings me back to a time where I was posing as a fly fishing guide at a remote lodge. And there was one de Havilland beaver, 16 guests maximum per week. And we're up in the air flying, me and the pilot, with guests. Neither I nor him had ever been to the place that we're being sent. And so I was excited to go because I've never been there, of course. And he was excited to go because he'd never flown in there. And we had the map because we started talking in the intercom. We were the only two that could hear in the flight. So, from the back, from the guest, we're just talking. But one of them is saying to the other, so where are we going? And I pipe in, yeah, it's that cool place that I was hoping to go to one time. And then he's like, is it? Just a sec. So then, this is before GPS started getting big.
Sure.
So then he literally lays out a map over the oaks. And we're looking at it. And he's going, is it this one? And I said, yeah, that's where we want to go. And we look back. And the guests are looking out the window. So that's cool.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Then I fold the map because he was flying. And that's where we went.
That was Shane Patrick talking about flying helicopters in Africa. If you want to learn more about Shane or listen to more 10-minute travels, please check us out at 10minutetravels.com.
And we want to remind you to make sure that your sense of humor matches your sense of adventure.